If Germany humiliated Brazil in the semifinals of the World Cup, what is the biggest defeat that happened in the other stages of the tournament? If you think that the 7-1 was crazy, it was nothing compared to the ones we'll see in this video. And the World Cup actually starts in the qualifiers. That's where in the 2002 qualifiers, Australia faced American Samoa and scored 16 goals in the first half. Then in the second, they added 15 more, finishing the game 31-0. That's just crazy. But now let's go to the World Cup itself, starting with the group stage, round 1. The first round is crucial for the teams to prove themselves. But in 1982, El Salvador had the worst start possible. It was against Hungary, and in just 3 minutes they conceded the first goal, followed by 2 more, ending the first half 3-0. But no one could imagine how big this thrashing would become. In the second half, Hungary scored the 4th, the 5th, and El Salvador got one back. But if they thought it would end there, Hungary scored the 6th and the 7th. And when it seemed like it couldn't get any worse, what happened next made this match enter history. El Salvador was defeated by 10-1. And while they were destroyed in the first match, in round 2 they also lost. But this time it was 1-0. So the biggest defeat that happened in the second group stage match actually took place 2 tournaments earlier. Congo, which used to be called Zaire, qualified in 1974 and had already started with a loss against Scotland. But it was the next game against Yugoslavia that they truly regretted coming to the World Cup. In just 7 minutes, the strikers scored the opener. Then after a free kick, Yugoslavia scored another, then a third. All of that in just 18 minutes. Things were so bad that the keeper was subbed off. But that change didn't help much, cause right after that they scored a 4th, one Zaire player was sent off, and they still took the 5th and the 6th, the game winning to the second half at 6-0. And Zaire finally managed to hold off the attack a bit, until 7-0. But before they could even think, Yugoslavia scored the 8th, and a few minutes later came another one, ending at 9-0. What a madness. But before we move to the biggest defeat in the knockout stage, let's go to the third round. For context, back in 1998, Spain found themselves in a critical situation. In their first 2 games, they had earned only 1 point in the group stage. So in the third round against Bulgaria, they needed a huge win to have any chances. And it started with Bulgaria committing a foul inside the box, so Hierro stepped up and scored the opener. But Spain needed much more than that, so they pushed forward until Luis Enrique shot it into the corner. It went to halftime 2-0, and in the second half they scored another one. Then Bulgaria got one back. Spain was in trouble, they had a goal difference lower than Paraguay. Up to that point, the biggest defeat in that stage of the tournament had happened 4 years earlier, when Russia crushed Cameroon 6-1, and when Argentina was humiliated in 1958 by Czechoslovakia with that same scoreline. It didn't look like Spain could come near that result, but starting from the 80th minute, the Spaniards decided to finish them.
El balón para Morientes, Morientes hace el cuarto. Y el gol, muy correcta la posición de Kiko, y el sexto.
Bulgaria was defeated by 6-1, and yet Spain was eliminated in the group stage. But now let's move on to the round of 16.
And Ramos, delicious hat-trick!
At the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, Portugal faced Switzerland in a round of 16 and shocked everyone. The coach himself started with a surprise, putting Cristiano Ronaldo on the bench. In his place, he gave a chance to Gonçalo Ramos, who didn't waste it. He scored in less than 20 minutes. Then Pepe scored with a header, making it 2-0. People didn't expect it to be such a humiliation, but then in the second half, Ramos scored another one and gave an assist to Guerrero. It was already 4-0. Then Switzerland pulled one back, but it didn't make any difference, cause Gonçalo Ramos chipped it in for another and Rafael Leão kept the humiliation going. He received the ball, sent a shot that looped over the keeper and dropped it into the net. So Switzerland was defeated 6-1. That was humiliating, but Switzerland still didn't match the record defeat that the United States once suffered. Decades earlier, Italy hosted the World Cup under Mussolini's regime, and in the round of 16 they faced the US. The regime put huge pressure on the Italian team to win the tournament, so they had to play well. Literally no other choice. So it took just 18 minutes for the forward Schiavio to score the opener. Then Italy made it 2-0 and Schiavio scored again. But then in the second half, the US pulled one back. And Italian players knew that Mussolini wasn't happy with that. So the Italians had to push forward and scored in the 63rd, 64th and 69th minutes, already matching that thrashing Portugal would make. But that's when Italy made it an even crazier record. In the 90th minute, Giuseppe Meazza scored another one, making it 7-1. I can never imagine this happening in modern football. Wait, now in the quarterfinals, Argentina faced Germany in 2010, and even with Messi in the squad, they couldn't avoid the humiliation.
Here is the cross in for Klose, 4 for Germany, and this is going to go down as one of the greatest days for German football in World Cup history.
With 1 from Müller, 2 from Klose and 1 from Friedrich, Argentina lost 4-0, making it the biggest quarterfinal defeat since 1958, when France thrashed Northern Ireland. Yeah, it was Messi who suffered one of the biggest quarterfinal humiliations. But that 4-0 still doesn't come close to the record that had been set decades earlier. Back in 1938, Sweden reached the quarterfinals and ended up facing Cuba. So it was literally pros versus amateurs, and in less than 10 minutes, Sweden scored the first goal. Then striker Widerström scored in the 22nd, 27th and 44th minutes, completing a hat-trick in the first half. Cuba was only playing in the World Cup because every other country from the region gave up from the qualifiers. But in the round of 16, they managed to defeat Romania. However, for Sweden, 4-0 wasn't enough. So they scored again in the 80th, 81st, 84th and 89th minutes, finishing the game by an incredible 8-0. People thought those kinds of humiliations only happened in the past, until one match came around.
Welcome to the World Cup semi-final of 2014, Brazil versus Germany.
Up to that point, Brazil had only conceded 4 goals in the tournament, and playing at home made them slight favorites to win. So Brazil started playing well, with the first shot coming from Marcelo, but in the 11th minute, Germany won a corner. The one marking Müller was David Luiz. Watch how he's keeping an eye on him, but when the ball was crossed, Müller ran into the box and David Luiz got blocked, so he couldn't get there in time and Müller scored the opener. At this point, Brazil still hoped to turn it around. But after it, they gave a masterclass on how to not defend. In the 23rd minute, Fernandinho missed the tackle, the ball fell to Cruz, who passed to Müller, then to Klose, who shot. The keeper saved the first attempt, but not the second. Brazilians were already shocked, but the defense was even more. So much so that literally 1 minute later, they left Cruz completely unmarked in front of the box, so he simply shot it into the net. It was already a disaster, but right after that, Fernandinho lost the ball in front of the box, leaving 2 Germans against 1 Brazilian who had no chance, and Germany scored a 4th. Everyone was in disbelief. Germany was doing this in the semi-final against the host country, but it was about to get much worse. In the 28th minute, the German defender carried the ball forward, and David Luiz stepped out of position to try to take it away, but he missed the tackle and left a huge gap in the defense. So this happened.
They're queuing up. They're all going to score at this rate. Khedira, the latest name on the score sheet.
Just to show you how humiliating this was becoming, in the 28th minute of the game of Sweden versus Cuba, the score was 2-0, and in Hungary versus El Salvador, it was 3-0. But Germany had already scored 5 goals against Brazil. If they had kept that same pace, they would end up with 16 goals scored. Luckily for Brazil, they started passing the ball around more calmly. But if people thought they were gonna stop scoring, when the second half arrived, the forward Schürrle came in, and he wanted to score his own. On top of that, Brazil showed poor defending once again, so there was no stopping it.
Back into Lahm. Square, 6-0 it is. Hardly anybody is celebrating.
Brazil was so lost that moments later, they once again left Schürrle unmarked. Look at where the defender David Luiz was. So
they might have number 7 here now. They have got 7. It's hammered in.
Then Brazil still scored a consolation goal, but the match ended with the biggest semi-final thrashing ever. Now, if the semi-final is supposed to be a tough match, the final should be even tougher. But not for Pellé's Brazil. In the very first time Brazil reached a World Cup final, they faced the host nation Sweden in 1958. So it started off competitive, with Sweden scoring the opener in the 4th minute. but Brazil quickly equalized, then scored again, going into halftime 2-1. It wasn't an easy match, but then in the second half, Pelé did this.
Milton Santos, Pelé, ja det är lysande. Titta på uppvisningen, det är makalöst, det är fullständigt...
A stunning goal that left the Swedish defense completely lost. So right after that, Brazil scored another one, Sweden pulled one back, and before the game ended, Pelé showed up again to score once more. So Brazil made the biggest thrashing in a World Cup final ever, 5-2. There have been other wins in finals by a 3-goal difference, but scoring 5 goals, only Brazil has done that. So what did you think of this video? If you enjoyed it, I think you're gonna like this one too. Thanks for watching and bye!